So you mentioned the incubator program and how Salesforce and Kenandy are helping you go in different areas and fire up new businesses. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so Merrow Sewing Machine Company makes sewing machines and spare parts, and we sell them all over the world, and it's a terrific business, and we work very hard to grow that. And there's a great story about how software organized that, right? But it's a very difficult business. We make a sewing machine which competes against Chinese and Japanese sewing machines that cost far less than ours, and to grow Merrow at the rate that we wanted to grow, we realized we needed to do two things. We needed to build a business plan around Merrow that created new value in these machines, and we needed to add businesses to our company that would allow us to grow into different spaces that were on different business cycles, and that had different, totally different customer bases, so that we would be able to become somewhat independent of the sales cycles around a sewing machine company. And what informed this largely was the financial crisis of 2008. When that happened and we saw how vulnerable we could be with the core business, diversification became really a significant part of my job. Yeah. And so how does ERP impact this? Well, you can have an idea to build a new business, to develop a new product line, to add something to your company. But if you can't organize around it, it's an idea. It's not something that you can execute on. And in the old world of software and of ERP, you could pay an integrator to come in and build processes around some new business venture that you're gonna have and fund that. But that's expensive, and it's a real impediment to growth. So the magic of what we're able to do with Kenandy is reduce the cost enormously to nearly nothing for us to take an idea, create organizational structure to develop that idea or that business, and then move it into the market, and then adjust when it worked or didn't work based on what our customers were saying or how the product was performing. And I mean, that's the unsexy description of the sexy stuff, which is we're talking about building new businesses. We're talking about launching. I think we've launched 14 new businesses over the last 6 years, and of those 14, 7 are still running. We killed 7 off. They just weren't very good. They didn't execute well. And when we made adjustments, we couldn't keep them going. And we've added with Merrow 6 years ago was a sewing machine company that manufactured a bunch of different sewing machines. In the last 6 years, it also has become part of our incubator project, and we've created an entirely new Merrow that for the first time in 40 years, because of what we've been able to do creatively and from an engineering perspective, Merrow is back in garment manufacturing all over the world. Instead of being in small niche markets, we're now in the very center. And it's because all of the creative work that we've done around Merrow to build value in stitching, which is very analogous to us launching an apparel brand or launching an e-commerce program that where we pick, pack, and ship product. All of these things are new businesses that we've built out on ERP and organized in very different ways around ERP.
And tell me, I know you have multiple success stories, but tell me your favorite one.
So there are two different favorite types of stories. My favorite story about how we used Kenandy and software to do something that I couldn't have imagined doing it any other way was we have a startup called WoolPro. We manufacture merino wool garments, and WoolPro we spent several years developing a line of or a type of wool, really cool fabrics, and then we designed some really cool products with them. We do it all ourselves. We sew it all ourselves with all our own machines. It's a solid, beautiful brand and product line. But apparel, getting into the apparel space is a very difficult thing. It's really hard, yeah. And so we struggled with it, and we weren't leading with the Merrow brand name. We were leading with this new brand name of WoolPro, which nobody knew.
Yeah.
Right. So we have this. It's a classic startup, and we treated it like that, and we wanted to treat it like that. We wanted it to be successful on its own merit without it being something that. So anyway, for 6 months, we're trying to bring this into the market, and we're having a real hell of a time. And one Sunday morning in February of this year, I was about to get on my bike, and I decided to put a post up on Reddit. Put a post up on Reddit that said, my brother and I have built this merino wool brand, and we're looking for brand ambassadors. It's a great story. It has, it's a great product, and we love what we've done, and we're looking for people who want to give it a shot and let us know what they think of it. And I got on my bike and put my phone in my back pocket, and 10 minutes later, my phone exploded. And it was just, it just started buzzing. And for the next hour and a half, it was buzzing with Reddit responses. And it got up to the first page of Reddit, and the site got 10,000 views in a day. And in a moment, in an unscripted moment, WoolPro became something that a whole lot of people were engaged around. And 400 people applied to be brand ambassadors. This was a Sunday. And on Monday morning, I walked into the company and said, so this happened. Now what do we do? And so you know what we did? By the end of Monday, we had built 3 applications to manage brand ambassadors, to manage a marketing program around Reddit and social media, and to manage the pipeline of what would be sample products and the issuance of sample products out to these brand ambassadors as separate objects, separate applications that all work together and tied back into the system. And I think this is the really important and interesting point. Many people have ideas about how to do something and how to build something. Executing on the idea, organizing around the idea is the hard part. And what I was able to do was take this thing, this spark, this lightning in a bottle, and hand it over to the company. And the company organized around it almost organically in one day. And by Tuesday morning, it was no longer mine. That whole thing was now customer service and purchasing and in accounting, and brand ambassadorship was this formal organized program. And it looked to anybody from the outside like we had spent months and months and months preparing for this. And it's one of my favorite stories because we did the same thing that would have taken months and months and months to do. And so it wasn't at all misleading. We did organize completely around this, and we created an experience for every one of those people who became brand ambassadors that was a very thorough, very detailed, very personal and involved experience. And those brand ambassadors have launched WoolPro. And I'm sitting here and talking to you, and WoolPro from February until today went from being an unknown brand to a brand that is making its way around the world as a real viable wool apparel product line. And that was a great story of organization around ERP. The second interesting thing that we did that I think is worth mentioning, Merrow's mission is to build value in stitching. And a long time ago, I decided I wanted to try to make sewing machines sexy. And what I really meant is that I wanted to create a value around a sewing machine that people hadn't perceived before. And the way we did that is by branding stitching. And so we created an entire line of specialty sewing machines that create special stitches that brands can market. It's a somewhat complicated business that you layer on top of the sale of a sewing machine. And without going into too much detail, because we don't have enough time, building that entire business model of a licensing model around a branded stitch that's going to be developed on these sewing machines that are then going to be used, broadly in the market for production around the world, was something we were easily able to organize and do in this ERP system. And it reminds me of a phrase that I heard somebody say, but in business, ERP is everywhere. It touches everything. And every one of these new ideas needs to be organized around ERP if you want it to be durable, if you want it to be something that isn't a one-off, simple exercise. And this project with Merrow to create branded stitching, with this vision that consumers will walk into a store and they will see a garment, and they'll see the designer, and they'll see the fabric type, and they'll see a tag on it that says, this has Merrow stitching. This is going to happen this fall. And for the first time, I think, in the history of garments, we've branded stitching in an innovative, creative, value-added way so that garments are actually going to be better and be advertised as such. And we did this because we have Kenandy and Salesforce and this software structure that enabled us to have the time to be creative, to organize those creative ideas into something that we could execute on, And then very importantly, when we brought it out into the market, adjust it, because we didn't get any of that right the first time out.
Of course.
And so we were able to easily adjust what we were doing to accommodate what the market really wanted to see. And both of those projects are new successes on the back of a whole lot of work that went into getting to where we are now. And the least amount of work was the work around software, which is the complete inverse of where my company was in 2007, 2008, 2009.